So we've said before that Star Wars needs to pump the brakes. They're putting out too much stuff, and it's just not feeling good, at least on the movie end. Mm-hmm. And ever since seeing Clone Wars and Mandalorian, I think we need to pump the brakes and redact that statement.
I think it's like we talked about earlier. Maybe it's not that they need to stop what they're doing. Maybe it's they need to stop the same story they've been telling for decades.
Well, see, that's the thing that I think is wrong, is that they need to keep the story going. Maybe, I don't know, man, because they try to kind of expand on the new story, or on the story with the new, like, the next trilogy with Rey and Finn and all them. But, man, like, Clone Wars, it just kind of, like, wiggles its way into, like, the story leading up to, it kind of goes, like, hand in hand, the last season does, with Revenge of the Sith, and then into episode 4. And then The Mandalorian is just after all that stuff. And it's like post, like, it feels like we've said before, like a Western kind of feel, but in outer space. And I don't know, man. I think it's hard to say. It's just the sequels, like the new sequels, just felt like they fell short. Yeah. Or maybe they were trying to do too much instead of giving you these rich, watered-down stories like we've seen with, like, The Mandalorian or with Clone Wars. Or in X-Men's, like, we can just go to X-Men, I suppose. Or how long was X-Men just kind of in a weird spot? They couldn't, like, stick the landing, and none of their movies were very good. And then Logan comes out, and it's just this rich character-based story. And everybody loves it. And I mean, maybe that's what you need to do. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I feel like with the prequels, there was such a good story there to be told, and maybe it was just the expectations of what was to come, and it just didn't reach that. But I don't know. I mean, it's tough.
I found myself watching not the prequels, the sequels, like the 8, 9, 10. No, 7, 8, 9. Watching 7, 8, 9 and being like the first one I was excited for, because it was, like I said, it was a little more down to earth. You got Rey and Finn, and they just, as soon as they're on screen, you're kind of drawn to them.
Yeah.
But then after that, it goes all over the place. Like the action in The Last Jedi is cool, but the story is all over the place, but it also doesn't get anything done. Like, they're just running for 2 hours. And then in the one after that, I think that a lot of it is people, like, in the internet also does this, where people kind of get on their, like, Reddit threads and Twitter and things like that, and they just start coming up with theories, and certain theories start to stick. And then people get upset when the popular theory doesn't happen. And the same thing happened with Game of Thrones. But so.
And that very well could be part of it. I mean, that could be part of why just the original prequel, or the prequels, didn't feel as good. Maybe because everyone's expectations of what was to come.
Well, the prequels, I think, didn't work because just acting and, like, the writing felt really bleh. But the story is there. Like, you can see the story. Like, it is dope. Like, if you just kind of, like, look at it, and man, that's why Clone Wars is so sweet, because people wanted more of it. Like, they could see the outline of what they were trying to get done. And man, when you got, like, into that, like, people ate it up, and I love it. That's why I'm so geeked, and that's kind of why we're talking about this right now, is because I just wrapped up Clone Wars, and dude, it was so dope. Like, it just slides everything into place for everything to kind of make sense a little later on, as far as, like, you know, they've said that Ahsoka Tano is going to be in the next season of Mandalorian, and this kind of sets that up. And then Darth Maul is in the Han Solo standalone movie. Just kind of set that up with him being like an underground broker. It just kind of moves all the pieces around, but it also feels good and, like, natural. So I love it, man. It's super dope. Like, if you haven't seen the last season, check it out. Like, the last episode it hits you in the feels, man. If you've watched it from front to back for sure and gotten to know some of like the clones and things like that.
All right. I mean, I watched a good deal of season 1 and 2 of it, because Star Wars was never my thing. I haven't been huge on it.
I'm not big into Star Wars either.
Yeah. But I do enjoy that show. I mean, like you said, it just picks up what you wanted from the Clone Wars, like those movies.
Yeah.
Makes it better.
Yeah. I mean, there's no Jar Jar Binks. He might be in like an episode or two, but it's only 20 minutes. So you can kind of stomach it.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude,
I think a big part
so good.
I think a big part of those prequels is kind of like Anakin was a little whiny, and it's like,
yeah,
man,
and then in this, he's a lot more
like he's torn.
Like,
you can tell he's torn,
yes, but he's not like, it's my feelings. It's more of like how should I handle this?
Yep.
And that's kind of one of the big things, and that's really highlights Ahsoka's character. And I told you before we started that there's like a moment when Order 66 pops off, and she's like confronted with the option to either to kill the clone or get killed. And what she does is she comes up with like a unique and like different way so that she doesn't have to be the one to basically swing the axe, because she doesn't want to be, because that's not how she is. She's just a good person. That's why she left the Jedi Order in the first place, which is super good, man. This last season made me even more excited to see what they do with her, because it's the same writer as well as Jon Favreau in The Mandalorian. So,
dude, Jon Favreau's just done some amazing stuff too.
Yeah, dude. I'm geeked. I'm geeked for this coming up, man. And Rosario Dawson, man, she's good in the stuff that she's in, and she's the one playing Ahsoka. So I'm geeked for it.
Yeah, I agree. I love The Mandalorian. Like I said, I like the Clone War stuff from what I watched. So
yeah,
it is a good point of where we did say, hey, maybe you should slow down, and like we said earlier, slow down and stop what you're doing. But maybe it's more of not stop. Just I think they've gone to better writing.
Yeah,
which is Jon Favreau. Like we were just saying, he did an amazing job with The Mandalorian, and then also pulling in all the different directors to do them.
Yeah,
made a huge difference.
And another thing for like the prequels I think they kind of got too carried away, where it was like starting to treat it like a show, where they're cutting from this group to this group to that group to this group. Where in the original trilogy, it was you're cutting to Luke doing his thing with the Force and all that, and then you're cutting over to Han and Leia and them doing their thing as far as like kind of the task force of like the movie, where they're going and shooting it up or blowing up the thing so that the rest of the guys can blow up the other thing. Like there's like 3 things going on at once, wherein the prequels, it just felt like they were hopping all over the place.
Yeah, it's so many characters involved.
Yeah, and instead of just following, say, Anakin or Obi-Wan, who I think is probably the highlight of the whole prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can't go back. But what they've done with their series, I think they've knocked it out of the park as far as The Mandalorian and the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And Rebels too, man. Rebels is cool, and that's another thing, man. They bring Darth Maul back into this, and in Rebels, there's a moment where Darth Maul comes into it, and then Ahsoka's there too, and it seems like they have like some history that they shouldn't have, but then this clears it all up. It's like, oh, okay, this makes more sense now. So it's super dope. And if you haven't seen like Rebels, at least look up when Ahsoka fights Darth Vader, because that is so lit. Like, it's so dope, man. Like, you get to see Darth Vader doing Darth Vader stuff and not really holding back. And you get to see, like, Ahsoka doing, flips and craziness all around him. And it's so sick, man. The setting's dope. It's good stuff. Wars, check out the final season. It is so good. And The Mandalorian is also so dope. I guess our final verdict would probably be, like, stick to series until you can get, like, the movie thing right. Which you don't know until you do. Maybe there's no more trilogies. Maybe just stick to kind of living in the world instead of trying to expand it.